Hi, everybody. Welcome to the 17th Annual Damn Short Film Festival. I'm Lee Lanier, one of the co-founders and also a programmer this year. I programmed the sci-fi, horror, and animation. And we've reached the horror Q&A. We have a few filmmakers with us, so let's bring those people on. Hey, guys.
How's it going?
You'll be coming in a bit late, probably trying to figure out the technology. This is all very new to us here at the festival. So we have Tobias Forrest from Dead End Drive and Trevor Zell from Out of Order. What we'll do is we'll have about 45 minutes. Oh, here's a late arrival. Kyle Mumford with, let's see, The Door. Welcome. So I have 45 minutes for this Q&A. I'll start off the questions, and then we'll turn it over to our audience, who could be anywhere in the world. And we'll have questions handed to us by our assistant who's behind the scenes. So I'll start off with a general question for each one of you, or actually a question about each person's film here. So let's start with Tobias. With Dead End Drive.
Hi, it's Tobias, or Toby if you want to cut it short.
There's been many zombie films made over the years, right? We've had a number that have shown here at the festival. Was it difficult to come up with your own angle on the zombie story? And how did you think of that idea?
I guess without giving too much away.
Well, I think it might be muted.
Oh, can you not hear me all right there?
Or maybe I can't hear.
Let me try.
I can hear.
Oh, you can hear it okay?
Yeah, I can hear.
Oh, okay. How about yourself there, Lee?
Unfortunately, I couldn't hear the answer to that. I'll have Mike Keith, who's in the background, technical director, and Willie. I'll see if he can fix that for me. Let's see.
I guess I should keep talking.
All right, in the meantime, let's move on to another question. So a question for, let's see, Kyle at The Door. They has some very interesting visuals. I was curious if the kind of creepy visuals came first, or did the story come first?
Story came first for this one. Creepy visuals came right after, which is great. It's always fun. Yeah, I mean, luckily my parents have a house in Vermont, and I partially grew up in Vermont, so we kind of knew where to go. Probably the best visual of that film, which is the main character overlooking the lake while she sets the box on fire of memories. That was kind of last minute. The location we had that we wanted to shoot for that visual, I showed to one of my cinematographers, and he just said, no, I don't really like that one. I was like, all right, how about here? And it was the lake. I mean, the pond. So it was cool.
I still can't hear, so I think that was a pretty good story. So we're still working on my end. We'll figure it out. Hopefully the crowd out there got that good story. We'll move on to Trevor. Now, Trevor, you've had at least one film here, if not more than one here at the festival in the past. Oh, he's got a message from the technical director. I have a problem. I'll have to figure this out. In any case, you've had several films here in the past, and you've had films play elsewhere also at film festivals. I was curious if, based on your experience with these various festivals, if you were able to approach this new film differently, or is there anything you did different from that screen experience on the circuit?
This film was, I kind of don't really make films for festivals. I kind of make films just because there's an idea that I have, and I want to just dive into the themes and the almost the philosophy of it all. And so this idea actually came up, as a flight attendant. That's my other job. I'm actually right at the hotel for training tomorrow. But one of the things I do for exercise is run up and down the stairwell. And so when I was at MSP, Minneapolis, doing that exercise, I went into the stairwell and ran all the way up and down a few times. And when I was done with my workout,
I couldn't leave. All the doors were locked, and the only place that you could leave was the basement floor, which exited into the parking lot. And this was dead of winter, and I was like checking every floor just in case, and I kind of got a little freaked out. And that was the impetus of this horror film, of Out of Order. So it's about a man who finds that he cheated on his wife, and this ominous stairwell, messes with him. So yeah, to answer your question, no, I didn't make my film just for a festival. It's just playing with ideas and making stories from life experiences.
All right, I want to duck underneath my table here for a moment to plug in my headset into a different channel. Just bear with me one
Hard to
second.
have a conversation when you can't hear us.
I think we can all just hear each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kyle, have I met you before? Like, your last name seems really familiar.
Oh, my last name is like Mumford and Sons, the band. But you do look familiar. I don't know.
I don't know Mumford and Sons that well. What was the last film that you made? Maybe we bumped into each other.
I made it was a dramedy called Jamie and Jonathan. Came out a few years ago.
Is that do you know Brian Flakus? Is that something that he worked on too? No, okay.
No.
Mistaken.
Well, you guys are locked in now. You know each other now. There's no way out.
We know each other now. Yeah. Oh, and my last name is pronounced Joe, like Joe. Just FYI.
Oh, sorry. Okay, can you guys hear me now?
Mm-hmm.
Hey,
All right.
Yeah, it's a perfect
All right.
Verizon commercial. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. I can't hear myself. I can hear you guys. That's a step forward. I'm sorry. How did you pronounce your name once again, Trevor?
Tobias.
Joe. Last name is like G.I. Joe.
Okay, Trevor Zhao. My
Yeah.
fault.
Yeah, no
And
worries.
did I say you're wrong too? Tobliss?
Tobias. Or you can
Tobias.
call me Toby. Yeah.
Well, the I looks like an
It's okay.
L.
Lee, you're going to have to give us your last name too, because it's Lanier.
Lanier. It's like, yeah, it's American
Lanier.
version. Yeah.
Lanier.
All right.
Lanier.
All right, we go back to the French, so you could say that. Yeah,
There
definitely.
we go.
All right. So now we got that worked out. I can hear you guys. Let's go for another round of questions here. All right, let's see. I unfortunately didn't hear your answer, so hopefully I won't repeat this. Dead End Drive with the what was interesting. All right, no, I'm not hearing anyone. All right,
Oh, I'm still here.
There we go. All right, that's good. That's good. All right, so a Dead End Drive with the characters. Did you think about what kind of character would survive the zombie apocalypse? Because it's kind of interesting.
I more or less thought about what character wouldn't survive, which would be me, because I happen to be a C5 quadriplegic from a diving accident years ago. And as an actor, I've always wanted to be in a zombie film because I was so intrigued by the thought of who would really keep me alive? Like, I either need someone who really loves me or just really dumb people who I can convince to keep me alive. And I thought, well, let's go with the person who loves me and just this husband and wife and what does family mean and what do you sacrifice? And a husband who sort of knows he's an anchor on his wife's life in an apocalyptic, world full of zombies, and how do they survive that? And then also they invite a stranger into their house. How do those dynamics work? Of bringing in a complete stranger off the street who's on the run and not knowing that person, and also maybe having ulterior motives. So, yeah.
And that was definitely an interesting part to see what was going to happen. Like, who was going to pay the price? What was their secret? they going to have him for dinner? What was going to happen?
Cool. I mean, and part of that was really just a joke, a play on a joke of saying, how do I take a zombie apocalypse and throw some Hansel and Gretel in there, and throw a good old fashioned eat your vegetables, and just trying to throw those three things into the mix, and also have a no monster movie. Yeah.
There are no actually zombies. We don't see the zombies anywhere, do we?
Yeah, that was the real test I wanted to do on myself, was how can I make something somewhat scary and thrilling and also funny without relying on any kind of effects, really. Yeah.
Well, after The Walking Dead, I thought there was no room for any more zombie films, so I was wrong with that. So that's good.
Well, we do have Eileen Gruba from Fear the Walking Dead as one of the stars of the short film, so that was great.
Cool. I didn't recognize her. I just watched a few of those episodes. Great. Let's move on to The Door. One thing that attracted my attention to The Door was the visuals. Just kind of the surreal visuals. Unfortunately, I didn't hear if you said the visuals started first or the story or visuals.
The story started first, then the visuals came in. Yeah.
Now, did they just was there any inspiration for those particular visuals, or?
It's one of those things where you kind of you start the story off with broad strokes, and eventually, as you kind of repetition, just try to figure out the story and really develop it, ideas of how you want it to look. All the blanks start to get filled. I think I was telling you earlier, you didn't hear it. I guess you weren't able to hear it, but I mean, for one thing, I had a visual of when that scene where she's on the pond and she burns the box of memories. That originally was not set to be on that pond. It was actually set to be somewhere else. And it wasn't until that day, one of my cinematographers came up to me and just said, I don't think this works at all. And I was like, really? I was like, he goes, how about this? I'm like, that doesn't work. And we just saw the pond over yonder. He's like, what about here? I was like, okay. And it was just perfect where the whole sun was setting. So, I mean, that kind of, we improvised a little bit. But one thing for sure is we really wanted to shoot on Kodak because we had the opportunity. So that's something that really, fell into the visual as well. One of the cinematographers had his own setup, so it was easy for us to just do. I hadn't shot on film since I was in college. So it was like, why not? Kodak was hooking us up with some film. We totally sold them on a concept that we didn't do. But we got free film. Well, not free film completely. We got a huge discount, and that helped feed the visual as well. The one thing that was always there from the script from the get-go visually was the shot of our main character looking down at her on the bed and being there for a long period of time until she actually breaks. That visually had always been there from the beginning. So, yeah.
So do your own taste in film run in this, across the same genres in terms of surreal horror films? If you go to watch a film yourself, you're impressed by that kind of work?
Yeah, I mean, I've always loved surreal horror or surreal films in general. I really just wanted to kind of create visuals that amplified the story or amplified where the character was coming from. I mean, that was really the main drive for the visuals.
Okay. All right, cool. Story driven. All right. That's good. Let's see. Let's go to Trevor again, out of order. Now, again, I didn't hear what you said, unfortunately, but I think of Out of Order as kind of almost like a morality play. If you do something wrong, it's going to pay the price. So for you, where'd the idea come from? It was almost like the building was seeking revenge. I don't know if that's how you intended it, but how'd you come up with that idea?
Yeah, I that's exactly what I talked about earlier.
Okay.
So the idea came about from me being a flight attendant, and I said that I'm currently like in a hotel room for training because we need to recertify all the aircrafts that you guys fly on so that I can evacuate y'all in under a minute so no one dies. That's a good thing. But the idea came about when I was in a hotel in Minneapolis and I got trapped in the stairwell. And I couldn't get out because, and you know, being a flight attendant, you know, after doing it a few years, you kind of try to find different ways to work out and exercise. And I found one of the best ones is to just run up and down the stairs. So that's what happened. I know, and one of, like, I've seen so many different stairwells. One of the funny stories is that I was in this one, I forget where it was, but I was in my workout clothes. I was running up and down the stairs, and like this dude who totally looked like a stoner, and he literally smelled like a stoner. He like ran up like faster than I was, you know? And then I was like, okay. And then the security guard like jumps in the stairwell, and he's like, and he like thinks that I was the dude that was smoking weed or something. And so he's like stopping. He's like, "Where's the weed? Where's the weed?" And I'm like, "Yo, I'm just working out, man." You know, I've seen like condoms. I've seen, you know, just like, I don't know if this is PG. Sorry if I, you know, but you know, the stairwells are a really interesting thing. And as you're running up and down them, they kind of all blend together. The different floors blend together. And so that sort of anxiety when I was actually trapped in the stairwell, I couldn't get out because all the doors were locked until the basement floor. That's where the idea came from. And also there are moments in my, you know, in my past where I do wish that I could have told the truth to somebody, and I wasn't able to, you know, and that's also what the main character is grappling with. You know, should I tell the truth in the situation and suffer the consequences, or, you know, and it is about morality, because every time he does something, the stairwell responds by letting him go down another floor. And it also consumes. If you pay attention, everything in the stairwell, like everything he tosses, is consumed down the center.
So you see, the stairwell is actually the character itself. I mean, that's what's kind of seeking.
It's absolutely a character itself. Yeah.
So it's not the building, just stairwell. It's correcting things, like I should say, right? Or
I mean, it's I don't know if you've seen the film The Langoliers, Stephen King.
Oh yeah, a long time ago, yes.
Yeah, like it's a little like that type of consumption where it's like they're just it needs the truth. In my mind, that's what it needs, the truth. You know.
I do remember those really bad effects from that film too.
They're horrible.
It was terrible. Let's see if we have any questions. Do we have any questions yet? My technical team who's hiding out there on the internet. Any questions? We'll come up with some new ones.
Well, let's talk about horror, you know, and the process. Like I've been really busy and I haven't been able to, because I've been on a plane. But like, let's Tobias and Kyle and Lee, like let's chat about horror. You know, what do you love about horror, and how do you come up with your ideas when it comes to horror?
Well, I'll start just because I programmed the horror, and then we'll turn it back to the other guys. Horror is a really interesting thing to program because it needs to fall into horror in terms of something being a bit horrific in it and scary and something to make you anxious. But I tend to look for films that have something, either a sense of humor or something sly about them, or something that really creative. You know, in terms of like Kyle's film, for me, the visuals really sold me. For Tobias, I mean, I like the fact that, you know, there's this person you wouldn't expect surviving the apocalypse is there in the situation, and then you know, it's drawn out. You know, you don't know what's going to happen to him. You know, something bad's going to happen, but you're not sure. And Trevor, I just never seen, you know, again, like a morality play with this inanimate thing, the stairwell representing this dark force kind of seek its, I don't know, justice, I guess you'd say. and we generally don't go for like straight slasher films or anything like that unless there's like something really clever and something maybe really over the top about it, or just kind of funny. That's where I'm coming from in terms of programming. But yeah, let's turn it over to the filmmakers. What would you say about the horror genre?
I mean, I'm ironically enough not a huge horror fan. Sorry to burst anyone's bubble. I often get to the end and I go, oh, I love certain ones, so it makes me very, I guess, select in the ones that I choose. But you know, for instance, you know, the first Night of the Living Dead, right? It's like I kind of in this film paid a little bit of homage to that in a small way, literally small way. But I love that film in particular broke a lot of cultural boundaries at a time, right? That you wouldn't expect it to be, right? There's no real true villain. It's just, and you really get a sense of how do you take this low budget and this concept and you marry them together with a story that tries to reach into people's emotional life, right? And interrupt them for just a few moments and go, hey, come into this world and feel the emotions that these characters are going through. And I thought like that film in particular did it so well in black and white and in a time that you don't expect, you know, main characters of so much variety. But then I love like the whole genre of like twisting with the mind with horror. And I love when you can take it out of like base it in reality and how do these people survive? You know, ultimately is the horror film is how do the people survive? Right. And I love that puzzle of how do the people survive what they're supposed to not survive. Yeah.
Tobias, have you seen the film Pontypool by any chance?
No, I haven't.
Oh my gosh. So it's this like do you know about it?
No.
So Pontypool is a zombie horror film, and you are pretty much in the room with this man who is a radio host. And so, you know, he's like one of those like, welcome to 107 FM, you know, type of guys. And he's like taking phone calls and playing music. And as he's taking phone calls, people are like, yo, what is going on right now in town? You know, and it's like this slow burn.
Yeah.
You would love it. If I have not seen any films thus far because I've been prepping for this training thing.
Well, no, I think we're all in the same boat. But we clearly, thanks to Lee, all have the idea that there has to be some psychological factor, you know, some type of manipulation of either the reality or the emotional or the story itself.
Yeah, I would say also
we're all messed up because we're all filmmakers, so it totally plays into it, you know.
But also, I'd say there has to be some sense of humor. I think for me, most of the time, there has to be some little bit of sense of humor to it. Now, not all the films have the same degree of that, but I think you need something to.
I mean, the movie that scared me the most was Squirm when I was a child, about worms that attack people. So you can only imagine.
That was. I've seen both those films. In terms of the film that Trevor mentioned, that interesting about that film is you never see what's going on. It's almost
until the end.
Yeah. It's almost like the word itself is dangerous. It's a very unusual film. Definitely in terms of horror films, nothing like it.
One of my favorite horrors was is this film called Wreck. It's like Record. They did an American version, but it's not the same. And it's about this woman who does this thing called While You Were Sleeping, and it's a Spanish show in Spain, and she, pretty much does a documentary and follows people that work the night shift. And that's all I'm going to say. It's like, these block parentheses and it's REC, like recording. It's so good. It's so good. And it scared me. And I watched it on Thanksgiving because I had just moved to New Jersey at that point, and I knew nobody. And I was like, well, I could either go out and feel awkward and not have a costume, or I can stay home and watch a horror film. So I did that.
That's another good one. I think that's an episode with the succubus in it, if I remember correct. But anyway, yeah, let's hear from Kyle. So Kyle, what's your take on the horror genre?
Just like Tobias said, I'm kind of a little bit of an outsider. I wouldn't say a complete outsider. I'm a huge fan of all genres. And I am a huge lover of theater. Comedy is big with me. And the thing is that story is key. The element, like to me, I try to look at what is the human element to this that drives a story. Because if you make it relatable at a human level, it's that much more horrifying. With The Door particularly, it's all about revenge or making a big mistake in your life and how to live with that. And here's a human who a twin who lost her sister and regrets what she did. And slowly we learn. And that to me, is a little, I wouldn't say like, yeah, we all have a twin and yeah, I'm not that specific as relatable, but in a sense that we're all guilty of something we've done in our life, and it makes it somewhat relatable. So that horror that she's facing is the audience connects to. And that's what I love about horror, is getting down to the human element. That, and like what you're saying about comedy, I love adding a little bit of comedy into it as well, because it makes it helps. I think good filmmaking is like almost like cooking or baking. Sometimes you're throwing this, that, and this into it. And if you put in the right ingredients, you get something fresh and new. And so comedy into horror is really good when well done. Drama underneath horror is always great. So that's kind of the horror I like to make, and I love to watch.
Well, I'll jump in and say that another thing that's been important to us as a film festival is making sure we find pieces that have interesting characters. You really need to have a good character that there's some sympathy and empathy for.
Yeah.
And oddly enough, that sometimes is kind of rare. We definitely get a number.
That was my biggest thing. I was like, I needed a guy who could really carry this whole film, this whole story, who you would believe that this is a big guy who would survive, who would also be threatening to a husband and wife, in the middle of nowhere. But you could totally empathize with him and not, and initially judge him, I guess, in a sense, but really be wrong. And also, how could I have a character, an actor who is big and larger than life, and can also play this intimate character who's really struggling and just wants to live. And I got so lucky that I got Austin Basis from Beauty and the Beast. He's awesome, and him and Eileen, who are these great actors, came on board as producers and just lovers of the story. And that's what they wanted to do, was like, oh, they love the story and let's help tell the best story. And also to be able to bring people who represent, like my world, disability. And for Austin, he's someone who represents the diabetic community. And that's sort of, we all have something about us, right? That's visible or invisible that we struggle with. and that makes us part of a community that is marginalized. And especially in film, I feel like disability is always after the ellipses when it comes to representation. It's like diversity, disability, right? And it's, but everyone uses the elevators. And so I wanted to be able to go, how can I bring these worlds to film without shoving it down the throat of everybody and just making it all about disability? It's a film about a guy who's trying to survive a post-apocalyptic world, and the disability happens to just be a part of the characters.
Well, that, again, and that's something we like to look for at the festival also, is we don't care who the characters are. We don't tend to try to fill any kind of agenda. And it's great when you even forget, like you don't even remember if they fill a particular category. It's like, no, it's all about the story. Well, let me ask Kyle and Trevor this in terms of casting. How important was casting for you for your two films? And how much of a struggle or how easy was it to cast? Who wants to jump in?
I mean, I can start.
Yeah.
So, I've been acting for like 10 years. I made like 3 films, and I've helped out on my friend's project, things like that. And one of my friends, while I was first ADing for one of her projects, she was like, Trevor, you keep talking about how amazing it is acting, and you keep like, saying you want to act. You can write. Why not just write yourself a film? So I did. And I think like one of the things that I like, representation is really important. And I think Tobias hit something, representation, seeing yourself on screen is so incredibly important. It allows you to feel realized as a person. And being a person of color, I feel that's insanely important. I didn't feel realized until I was thinking about it. The first Asian American I saw on screen that wasn't like a kung fu flick was Jubilee in like the X-Men. She was this Chinese American girl that had superpowers. And so that was important to me. And for me, I wanted to create more representation. And so I cast myself. I wanted to explore acting. And in creating this horror film, I thought about, like, what am I scared of? What are the things in my life that that I'm terrified about? And I will be open and vulnerable and share that, like, one of the major things I'm scared about is never achieving my true potential. I don't know what that potential is, but I'm afraid not to get there. And I know the industry is really weird, and being a person of color, I know like there are walls and there's ceilings and things like that. But I made a list of all the things that I'm terrified about. And then I kind of went with that and went forward. And so when it came to casting, I also wanted to create representation. There was a female lead in my film, and I wanted her to be Middle Eastern, because in so many of the films that I see, especially like TV shows and movies, anytime someone is Middle Eastern, they're almost always like a suicide bomber or like a taxi cab driver, and they always speak in an accent. And I thought that was ridiculous. And so I wanted 2 Americans speaking in English, perfect, American English, but not white. And so that was really important to me. However, when I was casting, I found a lot of women to act with. However, at the end of the day, I found somebody that was Italian. And I was going between Italian and Middle Eastern. And I realized that I had to choose the best actor versus, because my producer was like, do you truly need to take a stand with a short film? And that was a question that was really interesting to me because, you know, I feel like if I'm making a feature that will be more widely seen, I will definitely go the route of representation. But for this short, I didn't know how far I was going to go. So I chose the route of skill and talent. And what's really interesting is I had to cut her scene and our scene. And it was tough to cut, but I needed to cut it because it messed with the pacing. But what was interesting about it was I was the other actor in the film. I don't know if you guys saw my film, but I was the other actor. And the ammunition that I got when I did the scene with her and the tears and the difficulty of it all gave me the drive and the material I needed in my soul to do what I needed to do in the next few days of shooting. And despite the fact that I cut it all out, I needed it, and I'm so glad I shot it. And it was expensive. That was expensive to get that experience and not even have it in my film. But yeah, it was wonderful. I'm sorry I kind of went off the beaten track when it came to the question, but casting is it's difficult because there's a lot of, for some reason I feel like as a person of color, I need to really think about casting because I'm saying something with my casting. Whereas, if you're white or if you're privileged, part of the majority, you don't really need to think about your representing. Like Tobias, I feel like by casting and trying to create a character that has a disability, like you have to think about that representation.
Well, I mean, it's interesting because for me, I sort of ride the line, right? I mean, I am the majority. And I am also the minority. Like buildings are prejudiced against me. Like
Curves
no, we have stairs. Yeah. So it's really this intricate balance, and I think you pointed on something that is the most important part. That talent is what should drive the words, right? I mean, if you want the story to really be told, you have to get skilled actors to do it, and that's sometimes difficult to find, especially when it's a passion project.
You don't have much money.
yeah. And in those cases, it's like you also want to diversify, right? You want to represent as many people as possible, but that's difficult, and hopefully by creating more and more content, it influences other people to do the same thing by going like, oh, you know what, on my project I didn't think about having a young Asian girl in a wheelchair. That would be a great character, right? Wow, because I watched those 3 movies and it inspired me to throw a character together of all 3. But I think it's a difficult line right now, because how do you tell a story without being a part of that community as well, right? I can't sit here and truly write what it is to be a young Asian girl in a wheelchair. I can get the wheelchair part, but the other stuff I don't have, so it's going to be hard for me to identify.
I think it's about asking. Yeah. It's about asking and reaching out to the communities that you do want to represent, because as a storyteller, as all of us are storytellers, we can't tell every single story. But if there's something that does move you and you become obsessed with it, I think, and you aren't necessarily the person to tell it.
Yeah.
But you might have the privilege to have access to tell that story. So reach out to those disadvantaged communities, reach out to the people, and see how you can collaborate to further move the needle and make film and representation
writing those
more
diverse
accessible.
Characters, right, is really where it starts. And unfortunately, I like as a writer to have no real concept of kind of this character. I don't really have it fully fleshed out. Is he a white guy? Is he a black guy? Is he Hispanic. I just know what is the emotional quality of that character that I need.
Guys, I'm gonna have to jump in here because we're running out of time. It's a very interesting no, that's okay. It's a very interesting conversation, and sure we can spend more time, but we are locked to 45 minutes for these Q&As. So let's let Kyle get the last word in terms of casting here.
Sorry. By the way, I just want to note real quick, Trevor, I don't know if you saw, I was looking at my phone real quick earlier. I figured out how we know each other. It's The Sitter, the movie. I was on the location team during that movie. I think you were in that movie, if I recall. Yeah, that's how we know each other. Anyway, with that, I figured that out. With casting, it was really simple for me. The lead is my co-writer and co-producer. It was really in-house. The two other actors that you heard were friends of mine. I'm kind of involved in New York kind of theater and acting scene, and it was really easy. And I think Rachel, who is my producing partner, I knew that she could convey a lot of this guilt. We had many conversations about it, and how we'd all set it up. And she, in the end, just did a brilliant job with it. She, in part, was really the one who helped develop that the script didn't need a lot of dialogue, that the only a few sentences or words could tell so much. And her performance was so brilliantly shown, and she's also a very visual, she's very, how can I say, compelling on screen. So that just, I knew automatically would work, and we'd read right behind her eyes of what was really going on. So it was pretty easy casting, and it was fun having your partner there. It's also difficult because you're working with your partner, and they're going to have opinions too. But in the end, I could say it was a great casting choice.
All right, I think that's a good place to leave off. We're up to 8:43.
I had to say that though, because it's. I'm just messing around.
Oh, okay, because she's watching, right? Okay. All right, we're down to just 2 minutes. So thank you, everyone. I appreciate you guys for coming out during this experimental Q&A thing that we're still going to hang up. But we might like it so much, we might continue this somehow in the future. And if we go back to having a physical event, we might incorporate this. Because the great thing is having all the filmmakers come in from all over the world and be able to participate, because it's hard to travel. It's hard to take off work and all that. So,
well, and it's great because you brought us together, and I'm now... I have a more intimate grasp when I get to see your guys' films, right? I mean, there's going to be a connection there immediately. So thank you guys for bringing that into my life. Yeah.
And I have to add that when I did attend Damn Short, they were amazing hosts. They, hooked it up. I had so much fun, and I've collaborated with a few other filmmakers that I met there. And so they throw a really fun event. The parties are great, and the town is amazing. There's a great doctor there, so I can't wait to go back. I won't like. I hope that I hope that next year maybe they we can come just sneak in or something.
So. Don't tell anyone. We'll just do it. We won't tell anyone. No masks.
Yeah.
All right. I'm not sure if we just fade out or whatever, but thanks again. Looks like we're.
Thank you, Lee.
Yeah,
thanks a lot, guys.
So much.
All right. Bye, guys.
Looking forward to it.